XANGO PIIX is the brainchild, to some extent. It's a collaborative effort between the company and the distributors. And that's not always been the way products got developed. But this was Collie walking in with an idea and talking about it. Dr. Johnson had been instrumental in her getting the idea, and it came in from the outside. They talked about it. The people with power inside the company decided that it had a great appeal, that there was just literally the most seductive approach marketing-wise to this that they've ever seen, and therefore they decided that they wanted to grab this and run with it. And I think they're right, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first of all, let's talk about what is called individualized medicine, because I'm going to talk to you about individualized supplementation. Now, we have more in common with the people around us than we do have in difference. And everybody is very different. Biologically and otherwise, they're very different from the people around them, which means that the approach that you take for one person is never going to be ideal for anybody except them, because there will be individual response differences because of the individualization. In medicine, we're now beginning to learn that because we can look at a person's genome, something that's very, very personal to them, we can look at the way that they are made as an individual, and we can predict how medicines are going to work in them, because we've got some kind of an idea that this genetic configuration is going to work with this set of drugs or this kind of therapy, whereas it may not with someone else. And the commonest example of this is chemotherapy. Some chemotherapy for people with cancer is nothing but a pure poison, killing them. Other people, it's a relative poison, killing both good and bad. And hopefully you kill the bad before the good is gone. But when you take a look at what we can do, we now know that the same dose of medicine, aspirin even, is not what everybody needs. And we can gradually become more and more coned and focused on what is appropriate for the individual. So here we have a group of people, all human beings, males and females, biggest difference between them. But if you knew their medical history, you would know something else. And what you'd learn is that this person has digestive problems. They're still normal weight, not that it's such a terrible thing for them that they're in the hospital all the time or that they have an ostomy bag, but they have digestive problems. This guy is really relaxed. He knows how to stay calm, but he can't ever focus. So as a result, there are certain jobs and activities that he's just not very good at. And there are other things where other people are frazzled and anxious and whatever, and he's never in that camp, but he'd like to be able to improve the areas where he's deficient, and he just can't do it. Here's somebody who's got a big project at work, so they might have everything okay, but now at this point in time in their life, with what's going on in their work situation, they're going to be stressed and anxious. And here's another one who's stressed for different reasons. Interpersonal relationships. He got a problem with his girlfriend. And finally, here's somebody who sleeps great, but they may have digestive problems. And here's somebody who has trouble sleeping. Just talk about sleeping for a minute. 74% of the American adult population in a given year is going to have some significant problem with sleeping. Some of them will have chronic problems that go on for years and that are very, very serious. And when you realize that of the factors that affect health and longevity, after diet, sleep is the most important. So therefore, sleep really becomes key to having good health and living as long as you can. Now, here's the PIIX. There they are, the 4 of them, the first ones that the company has brought out. We had arguments behind the doors about which ones should be brought out, and this is a compromise situation in the sense that we have 3 of them that address one body system, the central nervous system. Okay? And there's an argument, and I'll show you later, that maybe we should have had not just the central nervous system, but we should break it down from central nervous system to peripheral nervous system, because they're different. So there may be even more body systems than you'll see later. But this was chosen, these were chosen, because they had a real deep knowledge of the kind of herbal support that could be brought to these areas. In other words, people have been worried about digestion for millennia. They've had problems with it. And they have used herbal solutions for those problems in 2/3 of the world. That's still how things are done. And therefore there's a lot of knowledge and many, many herbs that have a reputation of being valuable in the body. Some of them particularly good with the upper GI tract, in other words, the acid problems, the regurgitation, the gastritis, the heartburn. Some that are very, very good at working with the motility problem in the bowels themselves, diarrhea, constipation being complications of some of the difficulties that they would have, and absorption, digestion, food sensitivities, etc. And then there's a third group that fit into this category that are involved in what's called detoxification, the strengthening of the liver with its major function of being able to take things that are detrimental to the body, break them down, attach them to other chemicals so that they can be excreted from the body and will not do the damage that they would if they accumulated. So those are the three areas within digestion, and so all of those areas are addressed to some degree by the ingredients that they chose. Now there were well over 40 ingredients that they could have chosen. They have 9 of them. And they have been divided amongst those areas that we're talking about, and also with another consideration, again as I spoke earlier, how do they fit with the juice? We don't want to do the same thing that the juice does. We want to amplify the effect of the juice. And here they are, the slumber, the digestion, the calm, and the genius, and central to it all, the XANGO juice, which does 2 things. 1, bring its own very, very tried and true effects to all body systems, across the whole body system, and that it also is going to take away some of the unpleasant mouth effect or taste barrier that goes with taking tinctures. That's one of the reasons why tinctures just haven't been as popular as they possibly could. They taste crappy. They really are not nice to put in your mouth. So that is also true of the mangosteen and its pericarp. When we first tested the mangosteen and XANGO was thinking of using it as the basis of their drink, they were looking at 3 other things as well. And I was disappointed because it was so unpalatable that it would make people vomit. When I traveled to Thailand and watched how they used it with children in a tincture or a tea, not a tincture but a tea, that was how they delivered it. It took 3 adults to hold the child down to get the mangosteen into them, but they still considered that it was worth it. It doesn't taste good. But the juice does taste more than acceptable, and it's happened because a billion-dollar house that works in the flavoring business was able to take other extracts from ordinary fruits and be able to combine them in such a way that there was a masking effect to the bad taste. And it masks also the bad taste of the tinctures. Makes, for the first time really, tincture use on a very broad basis practicable because we can hide the taste. Now, nobody's ever going to do what the Mary Poppins song says, a little bit of sugar makes the medicine go down. We know now that sugar is really one of the big problems that we have. So this is a very real way of masking and getting over the taste barrier, because you can now take the XANGO Castle, well established, and there for 14 years, lots of data, no complaints, really, essentially. No reports to the FDA ever having had to be made in the decade that I've been responsible for making those reports. And this might be the configuration of somebody who's got headaches or problems or something up there. They've got a part of their edifice that they need that's different than everybody else. But someone else may have a digestive problem, or another person could have a problem with musculoskeletal things. You're going to have these kinds of differences. And here's the reason for extracts and tinctures. First of all, why extracts? Well, pills and tablets, even though they've been the delivery system for such a terribly long time, there is a tremendous non-compliance when you have to take something in a pill or a tablet 3 times a day, 12 and 14 tablets at a time. Really impossible, in a sense, to discipline yourself in most cases to take it when you're supposed to take everything you're supposed to take, and take it ideally. Some things need to be taken with food, others not. And so it's not convenient. And a tincture or an extract is easy to take, not hard at all. It's convenient. You can take that little 1 ounce bottle and go in a plane with it, which is the measure in my mind of convenience today. Because if you can't get on a plane, you have not got something convenient. And so you can do it that way. It's a growing market segment. When you take and compare it to something like essential oils, which have just whooshed up into popularity over the past 5 or 6 years, so much so that small companies which have been around for 35 and 40 years are now billion-dollar concerns, because the population really likes the idea of something svelte, convenient, extracted from plants, and that seems to make a difference in their health. Now, here's the good point. If you took all of the plants that have been used for medicinal purposes, what percentage can be made into essential oils? Well, more than half, but not all. What percentage can be made into tinctures? About all. So think of the difference in the ability to be able to take things that cannot be put into an essential oil and be able to still be used in such a way that it makes a difference. Okay? So, a growing market segment. Direct focus on the juice, which is the flagship product of the company and which has such a tremendous driving force that still today 81% of the income of the company comes from the sale of the juice. So focus on that. And finally, and I'll address this now, maximum bioavailability. First of all, I told you that, people who are listening to this don't know that because they weren't here. But what's important is what you can get from the cell, inside the cell of the plant, the phytochemicals that the plant has made to protect itself. You want those where? Not in your pocket, not in a pill dispenser. You don't want it even in your stomach necessarily. You want it in your own cells. And so that process needs to be expedited as much as possible, because if you trust just the human digestive system to be able to separate the things that you need from plants and get them into your body, you have to take 5 to 7 servings of fruit and vegetables a day, because most of that goes into the toilet because the body can't pull out any more than about 1 to 4% of the elements in there. That's called the bioavailability. How much of what you put in your mouth can get into the body, because if you think about it, the inside of your GI tract is really the outside of the body. Until you can get across the gut wall, you're not in the body. You may be inside, but you're not in the body where you can make a difference. So how you get that there really matters. And so I decided that I would make a slide that talked about plant cell to human cell, molecular nutrient transport. Remember again that nothing can be used inside the cell, your cell, unless it is so small that a light microscope probably won't even be able to see it. You need an electron microscope, because you're talking about things at the nanoscale and at the picoscale. Now, we talked about milligrams, but those are 2 orders of magnitude below. Extraordinarily different in terms of potency, as I explained earlier, and therefore very important that you have the bioavailability of these very, very small particles as much as you can. So here are all of the herbs, figuratively speaking, that you need or that you want for, say, digestive. 9 different herbs. What do you do with them when you're going to try and get them? Well, first of all, look at them. One of them's tree bark. Are you going to just chew on a piece of tree bark? People do that, but not the most efficient way of getting something into your body. So you macerate it. Macerate means chew, but in this case it's a machine that does the chewing. The maceration, or the breaking down of the cells for the mangosteen, goes down to 10 microns in size. we go through 4 hammer mills to break this down. Why? Because what we want is inside the cells. And all of the cells of plants are made out of cellulose. And we cannot digest cellulose. Ruminants can, cows and horses can, but we can't. So we can only get what we can break down or pull out of the plant cell in the form that we can use. And that happens by crushing it first, and then here's a tea bag, and we're going to use a solvent this time, which is water. Everybody understands what a tea bag is. And after you put it in water, and the water is always hot because it's a better solvent when it's hot, you put it in and you let it, quote, steep for how long? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if you want it really strong, maybe longer. So you let it steep and then you drink it. And what are you getting? You're getting everything that was in the herb that has managed to be pulled out by the solvent, hot water, and now is available to you at what size? Molecular size, the size you can use. Ergo, teas have always traditionally been one of the best ways of getting something into you. In fact, when you look at medicines, very many medicines cannot be delivered in a solid form. They have to be delivered in a liquid form. And liquids have always been more bioavailable, and we can see with the tea bag. Now, when the experimentation went on with tea bags and getting things out of herbs and into a solution that we could take, people learned that alcohol as a solvent is much more efficient than water because it will take out fat-soluble and water-soluble things together. And you can even make a solution of both water and alcohol and get some of the benefits of both of them. But when you have alcohol, it pulls out virtually everything, basic and acidic, and you therefore get a great extraction and a concentration in the alcohol. Now, the alcohol also happens to have the benefit of killing anything in there that you don't want in your body. So any microbes, viruses, bacteria, fungi, gone. And how long is the shelf life? Well, because you've got really the perfect preservative, your shelf life is virtually infinite if you keep it unexposed to light. Now, we only have a 2-year on this because that's traditionally what happens in terms of shelf life, but this is a real, very extended shelf life because of the choice of the solvent. And the concentration of it is such that only a couple of drops or 3 or the little amount that you get in your stopper, in your little, dropper, I guess, not stopper, in your dropper is going to be enough to make a difference in a whole body. Something that strong is really what we're looking for. And once again, it's at the molecular size. So it's ionic, it's molecules, it's very, very small. It's exactly what our cells need to have inside them to bring about the changes that we're hoping to be able to bring about when a situation of deficiency exists and the symptoms of deficiency are causing problems with the person's well-being. Okay? Now, I'm not going to spend a long time with it. Calm supports feelings of calm and serenity, helps manage nervousness, anxiety, promotes. Now, I guess sometimes you've wondered, why the heck does the supplement industry use such general sort of non-specific terms as support, help manage, promote? Why can't they just say cure, treat, etc.? That's the law. You can't. The kind of evidence to be able to say cure, treat, whatever, even inferentially, it's not permitted. And so that's what's allowed to us with the kind of evidence that we have to use those terms. And they're quite adequate because if you're promoting something, that's very beneficial. If you're facilitating or helping to manage something, that also is very beneficial. But that's the reason behind why we don't do it. Now the key ingredients in this one are passion flower, ashwagandha root, lavender flower, and lemon balm. But that is not everything that's there. There are 9 ingredients in there. So you're going to be looking, or excuse me, 8. So you're going to be looking at some of these because they're key. You should go to the web and you should put in ashwagandha root. Put in the various terms that you may not understand a lot about, and then just put in health benefits, push the key. You're going to have pages and pages and pages of information accessible to anybody who can read in terms that you will understand. Some of it may be technical and scientific, and you can just leave that aside and search what you want. But there is enough there to be able to convince most reasonable people that we aren't putting junk into the products. These are important points that everyone can research for themselves. I don't need to spend my time. Genius supports mood, clarity, and focus, helps sharpen memory and cognition. That's why I take it, okay? You know, I'm in the geriatric category. I had, in my young adulthood, I was exposed for relatively brief periods of time to 4 different languages, and I was able to learn them all and speak them with great fluency. Now I have been going to Asia for approximately 10 years, spending significant time there, and I have only a working knowledge of that language. What happened? I like to think of it as my hard disk being full, okay? I prefer to think of it that way, but the truth of the matter is that the ability to learn or to form short-term memories and to recall degrades as you age. And I don't want that. I'm going into old age kicking and screaming. No, seriously, I am doing things that nobody else could make me do in my life, getting on a treadmill, for example, because I don't want to get old more rapidly than I have to. I recognize that I'm going to get old and I probably will die. But the fact is that I'm not going to do that. It's a slope. And on that slope, I don't want oil or ice. I want sand and salt. I want to go down that just as slowly as I possibly can. And these things, these supplements, and particularly this one, is one that I take every day. Not because I wake up with a foggy mind like Collie says she does. She says her body wakes up at 7 o'clock in the morning and her mind wakes up at noon.
That's actually true, but her body doesn't wake up at 7 either.
Okay. So, she gets an immediate benefit from it. When I take it like with my vitamins. I do not take my vitamins in the morning and then at 11 o'clock say, wow, I feel great, I had my vitamins today. I don't. I take them on faith that there are things in here that my body needs, micronutrients that I'm not getting from my food, that I require in order to be able to live properly, free from disease and from problems. And that's why I take them. And that's also why I take this. Others may take it for the immediate effect. Here are some of the ingredients, and once again, only the key ingredients: ginkgo biloba, rhodiola. Now this is rhodiola rosacea when you're looking it up. There are many types of rhodiola. Look up rhodiola rosacea. Ginseng, gotu kola, and that ginseng is Siberian ginseng because there are variations of it, but that's the kind. Chosen once again for their impact in the area that we're looking to affect: brain activity, recall, memory, acuity. Digestion promotes digestive functions, helps soothe the stomach and ease discomfort, helps clear harmful toxins. And once again, remember that in my mind there are 3 major areas and problems with the digestive tract. The upper digestive tract, where acid, reflux, heartburn, things of that nature are the major concern. Then the bowels, where you may have absorption, motility problems leading to either constipation, diarrhea, or not getting enough nutrients out. A second area. And finally, the third area, the area of helping clear harmful toxins, the liver, which is really outside the digestive tract, a separate organ, but in fact so linked that I consider it part of the system. And liver support is extremely important in the polluted environment in which we live. Key ingredients: ginger, cardamom, peppermint, but there are 9 of them. So you can go down and take a look at them all and realize that they have been chosen because of the impact that they will have, traditionally have been used for. That's the kind of reason that they're there, and they dovetail with the juice. Slumber. Natural, soothing relaxation and sleep creates a sense of wellness and calmness, helps reduce stress, restlessness, and insomnia. And when you look at the ingredients, chamomile flower, valerian root, skullcap herb, hops flower, lavender flower, and passion flower, you will already have heard of many of these. What you may not know, for example, is that valerian and hops flower have a synergistic reaction when you take them together. That means 2 points for valerian, 2 points for hops equals 6 points for valerian and hops. It's not additive, it's synergistic. And the choices are good. The choices are things that they thought were going to work, and that appears from the testing that we've done and from the feedback that we're getting from the field that it in fact does do what is required. Personally, I travel very often from time zones, big 14-hour differences, and I come back and I have to be ready to go. And when I come from the Far East to home, I really have trouble with my circadian rhythm. I just can't get to sleep except at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when I can sleep perfectly well. So I need to use, and have used for years now, drugs. I've used nasty drugs that I used to use because I needed to get ready to be able to function without waiting for the 10 days that it would normally take my body to get adjusted. Now, this product is the first one that the company has come out with that has been allowed me to stay away from that pharmaceutical. Now, with the juice, I was able to reduce some of the drugs that I was taking for blood pressure and for other things, but this one lets me sleep. And so, do I believe in it? Absolutely. Can I turn my head off as fast as I want? No, I use a little bit of this and a little bit of the calm at the same time to really shut me down, because my problem is what is called sleep latency. The period of time between putting my head on the pillow and the time that I'm in la-la land. That takes a while for me. And older folks can be up to an hour and a half of lying there on the bed trying to do it. Well, we're going to be addressing that. Okay, I spoke to them and said, look, most of the over-the-counter stuff has got some pain relief in it. There are plenty of herbs out there that are helpful with pain relief. So one of the variants of this in the future could easily be something to help people sleep, but also to address the idea that some people don't sleep because of pain. All right, so we can look at, there's a great flexibility to this approach to products. Now, talking a little bit about this, I just want to, have we got the animation?
Yes.
Okay. This is the synaptic cleft. No nerve actually touches another nerve. There's a little space in between. And the electrochemical information that needs to get from here to here is done with something called a neurotransmitter that is actually built up here in the body of the cell. Some of those neurotransmitters fall into two categories, either fire, get going, excitatory, or inhibitory, don't fire. When you go to sleep at night, what you want is something that says don't fire. The best don't fire neurotransmitter is GABA. And the herbs that were chosen in the final selection, because there are many herbs out there with effect on sleep, we chose the ones that appeared to amplify GABA generation in the brain and work via the GABA cycle. Now that means that you need to get into a position where lights are out, your eyes are closed, you don't necessarily have a lot of sound coming in, you actually drop down the sensory level of your environment, and then you get more GABA firing, which says don't fire to the neurons, stop working on the problems of the day and start working on the problems of the night, which are build up the immune system, renew and repair the proteins that may have been broken down during the day. There's lots of work that goes on, but it doesn't need your mind to be conscious, alert, and awake to do it. In fact, But I wanted to show you because it's kind of fun to understand how these things work. And so you're going to see an animation now of neurons sitting together. It's an animation, so it's not obviously absolutely correct, but it's a good idea, and you'll see how much activity goes on in shutting down your brain. This is a neuron. See the axons coming down onto the body of the neuron, and the next neuron passing information with each one of those little blasts, and the effect of the neurotransmitters. And that, through the process of summation, am I getting more yeses than no's? Then I go with yes. Am I getting more no's than yes? Then I go with no. And GABA is a thing that says no, 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 because you're trying to go to sleep. And unless you're listening to me talk, that's going to be hard to do in many circumstances. Here finally are the body systems. I just did a quick diagram, and again, this is arguable. There will be a new body system in my prediction, and I want to get it on tape, that the microbiota, or the bugs that we need that work with us synergistically in many cases in our bowel to produce antibiotics, to produce neurotransmitters, to do the work of digestion and helping in the body, will become this 2.5, I guess it's 2.5 kilos approximately, 4 to 5 pounds, is going to become an organ system. So there will be another organ system. And I would also argue that the nervous system here could be divided into the central nervous system and to the peripheral nervous system, because we can address both of those things. But here are the things that we have currently, these 4, and this is where they go. Okay? So 3 of them for one system, 1 for the other. And Joe said for me to tell you, not tomorrow, but look what could happen. Just look at what could happen. Individualized supplementation. Addressing the individual needs by taking something that's general and across the board, helpful for all body systems, the juice, and adding to it targeted nutritional amplitude, so that you're going to get what you need, and you don't necessarily need to have the same things as your neighbor, and you may not even use some of these things all year round. We may have some seasonal things. There's a great amount of flexibility in this approach to it, and that is why the people who run XANGO are enthusiastic about this, and those who use XANGO products are also enthusiastic about it, because it gives a range and a facility and flexibility to this product offering that has never existed in the 14 years that I've been associated with it. So, that's the end. Thank you very much.